recording secretary. Potential planning and zoning staff members present are Kaylee Nunez, George Worley, Bryn Stotler, Tammy. Okay, Tammy DeWitt, and Matt's not here.
Steve.
Oh, you moved. You're supposed to sit over here. Morning, Steve. And we have Councilman Steve Shiska. This is an open meeting recorded and videotaped by the city. The proceedings are being televised by representatives of the public media, the public, local cable and/or radio stations, and may also be rebroadcast. The number of members present is 5. That will require 3 votes for a majority. All parties wishing to be heard on an issue are required to raise their hand and be recognized by the chairman prior to speaking. Speakers will be expected to state their name and address for the record so that we know speaking and them at a later date if necessary. Please turn off all cell phones and electronic devices if you already haven't done so. So please sign the attendance roster before leaving the meeting so that we may contact you if necessary. I would like to have a motion to approve the minutes for the December 19th, 2019 meeting.
Move to approve minutes of December 19th meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries 5-0. The first public hearing item, VA 20-001, variance to Article 3, Section 3.6.3, single family 9 minimum setbacks, 9-foot minimum setback of the Land Development Code to allow a reduction in the required 25-foot front yard setback by 22.5 feet to allow for a front setback of 2.5 feet to accommodate the construction of a detached carport. Zoning SF9, property owner Kat and Lance Moody, and that would be APN number 10907-042B, 0.21 acres, located at 414 Perry Street, Prescott, Arizona. Tammy, you're on.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Tammy DeWitt, Community Planner. The subject property is located in the subdivision that was platted in 1927. This is an access road that was part of that subdivision plat to provide access to these lots. It is an unmaintained city road, but it has never been developed to city standards. Here's the imagery of the area that was in your packet. As you can see in this imagery, there are other structures that have had variances in the past to allow for encroachment on this property and on this property. This one's been there, and then we also have some encroachment here too. Like I said, this is an unmaintained dirt road that is city owned. Here's a site plan of the property. So what we do, we have a 20-foot roadway here. And then we have the 20-foot front setback here. The house was built to the 20-foot setback. We did have the fire turnaround here. This was required by the fire department due to there was an access that the road does not continue through to the other road. There are there's slope and boulders on the property, which will show you in other pictures, but the house was constructed to meet the setback, and there's no attached garage or other carport or anything on the property. So here's coming up to the property. This is that 20-foot roadway right here, and this is where the location of the proposed carport is going to go. And this is the required fire turnaround here, so it does take up a lot of the property, the buildable area of the property. Here's a close-up. This is, like I said, the 20-foot roadway here, and this is the proposed location of the carport. This is the side of the property. When you come up, as you can see, there's lots of boulders on the property, which limits the buildable area here, and it does start to slope significantly right here. And this kind of shows you how it slopes from there down to the back of the property. This is coming up through the, from Perry Road up that road. This is one structure that had a variance previously, and we have another structure here that has about a 0-foot setback on those properties. And this is an undeveloped piece of property here. And this is coming up Perry to the subject property. Some things that we look at with the variance is a hardship that runs with the land, such as boulders, limited area, slope. When staff reviewed this, it does meet the criteria for a variance. But that concludes my presentation. I'm free to answer any questions you have, and the applicant is also here.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Ms. DeWitt. I heard you say that, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I heard you say this road is not maintained by the city. And I'm not familiar with that being the case routinely anyway. What is it that keeps the city from maintaining this road?
It has never been developed to city standards, so usually they don't maintain a road that hasn't been developed to city standards. So it's never been a developed road.
And so in these circumstances, I presume then that the roadway could not be built or modified to meet city standards for a street. Is that correct?
I'm sure it could if somebody wanted to do it, but at this time it hasn't been a requirement to address the fire district. They did have to put in this fire turnaround, which did take up a significant part of the property. Otherwise, there's no other requirements. The city would not make them upgrade the road to meet city standards.
Though if we had some kind of a storm such that it washed away portions of the street, who would be responsible for that repair?
City? The city would. It is a city street, so we just don't go in and maintain it. But if it did wash out, the city would probably come out and fix it.
Probably.
And we're not the roads department. I can't answer questions for another department.
I see. Okay, well, appreciate that answer. And I do have a question for the applicant. I wonder if they could come forward.
Kat Moody, 414 Perry Street, Prescott, Arizona.
Ms. Moody, we just see a footprint of the carport and no other design features, and I'm just curious if the elements and the finishes and colors are going to complement your house there.
Yes, it will. It will be in keeping with the design style of the house. The intention is to have a single shed pitch roof, which will pitch down towards the west. And the extension that's marked on the plan there, the 5 by 10 foot shed, would be under that same. It would just be an extension of that shed roof that projected into that area. It would match completely the house and the other fencing elements that are adjacent to that site right there.
And that'll be a metal roof on the structure?
I am not sure if I think it'll be a metal roof. That's what we've talked about doing. We have a lot of other rusted steel elements in the fencing around the property, and so we're talking about doing a rusted and then, it would be rusted and then fixed. It wouldn't continue to rust after that. But it would be, definitely a sort of rustic brown color. It wouldn't be shiny or reflective in any way.
And so with that slope, it seems to me as you come down Perry Street and approach it with that slope in that direction, you wouldn't really see much of the roof, I take it.
Well, no, you really wouldn't. You would just be presented with a fascia line. As you were approaching down the alley, there'd just be a fascia line you would see. And then from the side, you'd just see it'd be a 1 in 12 pitch which matches the pitch on the, I think in your packet, you probably have a image that shows the shed portion of the house, that back shed roof. It would be very similar to that in the roof pitch. So yeah, on the left of that picture there.
Thank you.
But it would be a 1 in 12 and heading to the west. So
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Randa Ward, 817 Country Club Drive, Prescott. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We would like to address just a few concerns that we have regarding the request for the setback. Our home is immediately adjacent north to this particular property, just opposite of that existing wall and property line. And our concern is regarding fire safety, not so much the appearance, but the fire safety of the proposed structure. As it stands, the home already appears to be more than 50 feet off the main road without any reasonable access to a fire hydrant, as the road is not city maintained, even though it is city property. And per fire code, a structure of this sort, even the home itself, should be within 50 feet, from what I understand, of fire hydrant access. The area behind our home where the Perry property is located currently does not appear to have an appropriate apparatus access turnaround point for the fire services. And we feel that a reduction in the setback would limit the ability to develop this access point in the future. We also feel that reducing the setback would put this new structure within approximately 10 to 20 feet of our already existing garage structure and property line, and we believe this would create a greater fire risk to our property with the reduction of the setback. And lack of appropriate access to fire services such as the hydrant and an appropriately built turnaround. And according to the fire protection guidelines per the Prescott Fire Department, included in section 3.02-1, a fire apparatus access road shall be designed and installed to extend to within 150 feet of all portions of the exterior walls of the first story of any building measured by an approved route around the exterior of the building. We don't feel that this already meets those standards, and we feel that building a structure so close to our existing property line and an existing structure would create undue fire hazard for our particular property. Additionally, the applicant had mentioned that there are reductions in the setback for some of the existing structures that abut that property. Ours in particular does have a reduction in the setback. However, again, the fire code does also allow for anywhere from a 4 to 6 foot reduction or setback allowance for a rear property structure, not a front property structure, which is why, again, a lot of those properties back there have that 4 to 6 foot variance. So that's just our concern, and therefore we oppose the proposal to reduce the front yard setback, as we feel that it would create an undue fire hazard for our existing property and structures. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I wonder if Ms. DeWitt can shed some light on this issue of fire protection.
Well, when the applicant built their house, which is it just finished recently, they were required to put in this fire truck turnaround. That was required by the fire department to allow them access to this back area. So there are no concerns from the fire district in regards to this. And they were also part of our reviewing to review this, and they'll be reviewing any building permits. So if they have any issues, they'll address it. This does not impact a 20-foot right-of-way through there, the roadway through there. So at any time that they still have the 20-foot there to develop the road. This does not impact that at all. So there's still at least 20 feet from their property line. That's the roadway. So it meets the 10-foot required building separation from the fire department.
If I may. My name is Roland Smith. I live at that 817 Country Club. On the order of the roadway, that roadway would need to have extensive maintenance in order to meet that 20-foot criteria. It does not meet that. It is not even close. There's a lot of debris, even behind my house. There's a lot of debris that's just been there forever, and it would need some extensive maintenance in order to make that 20-foot space. And not only that, as in my opinion, as far as the turnaround goes, if there was a 70,000-pound truck that was in there dumping water on that residence, if it was ever on fire, the erosion through those boulders and such would make that turnaround non-existent. There's no way you could dump 35,000 pounds of water and not erode that surface. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, is your property the one with the blue garage?
My property is the one that has the, yes, that one right there.
Behind.
I'm sorry.
That one there?
Yes. The existing garage that has never been, it's been there forever. We had no ordinances, or we had no,
So it looks like your home crosses the property line there, or the lot line. Are you on two
when we bought
lots?
the house 10 years ago, it was 8 inches over. And they went to the ordinances, and we had that, because there's a wall on the back. And when we bought it, there's a small wall that holds up the dirt, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And when we bought it, that went to the ordinance and passed.
I got a question from Ms. DeWitt. I don't know if there's any burden on the applicant regarding this roadway and cleaning out the debris that's been there.
No, that's not part of her property. That's part of the city road. So that has nothing to do with her property. So that would not be upon the applicant or the property owner to do that. That's in the city roadway.
And was there some standard to which this turnaround area was constructed?
Yes, it was built to fire codes. It was required by the fire department and approved by the fire department to meet their criteria.
And will there be a review of I don't know what the fill was like that went in there, or how many lifts there were when it was
It's already been permitted. I mean, that was all part. It's been approved by
been
the
done
fire
and approved.
department with the house was approved. So there's no issues from the fire department about access to this.
Do they have a fire sprinkler system in their house, in the applicant's house?
I'll defer that to the applicant.
Yes, the house is fully sprinklered. It was required as part of the urban wildland interface code. We have had a fire truck turn around, and the fire truck turnaround, the fire department did come out and approve it. It has been constructed completely to fire code and lift and engineering requirements, and that was part of the original building permit for the house.
Yes,
The right-of-way is, the existing wall shown in that plan is 2.5 feet off of that right-of-way. It's actually 2.5 feet inside our property line. The carport we're requesting is interior to that wall that's already there and existing. And then everything, to the north of there, 2.5 feet from that wall is the property line. And then that is the beginning of the 20-foot right-of-way. There are rocks and shrubs and bushes in the right-of-way.
Yes.
You know, we don't maintain those. We assume the property owner's adjacent. If they're concerned about those, any debris would take it upon themselves to limb up their trees. We had full vegetation management, fuels mitigation done on the site as part of the original construction of the home.
So my understanding is the fire department has already looked at your property, has already agreed, based upon the idea that they're going to have, you've given up part of the property for a fire truck turnaround, correct?
Yes.
So they've seen the property, they don't feel it's a hazard, otherwise they wouldn't have.
No, they feel like we increased the fire safety of the neighborhood
Right.
by quite a bit, because prior to this, there was no turnaround on the property.
Right. So it's made it safer.
You never could have, in fact, by doing the utility improvements in the alley coming off of Perry, a fire truck could not get in that alley prior to us extending the utilities, because there was the apron coming off of Perry Street was so sharp and steeply sloped, they would bottom out the truck and they couldn't get into the back of these properties on Country Club. When we extended the utilities up the alley was brought up to city standards, the apron coming off of Perry. And so that apron she's showing you a picture of, that grade is much improved. That was constructed to fire department standards. So the fire safety of all of those houses on Country Club is much, much more substantially improved over before we constructed the house.
That's the way I think
Yeah.
they get sacrificed.
And
Once again, Roland Smith, 817 Country Club. Not that it matters, but I would like to challenge the fire sprinklers on that house, because I had a discussion a long time ago when they were starting construction of it with Lance Moody, and I asked if they were going to be, how high their structure was going to be, and if they had, or if they were going to put in fire suppression sprinklers, and he said no, we're not going to do that. We don't need to do that. And it's very much my impression that my neighbor, who did have a new garage put in, was unable to put in a two-story structure because he was unable to get a sufficient water pressure in that neighborhood to put in a sprinkler system. So I've watched that construction ever since it started. I've never seen a fire extinguisher go in, a sprinkler system go in. But that might be completely beside the point.
I don't think it's beside the point myself, because that I don't know about the distance to a fire hydrant. I'm going to set that aside, but I know there's a fire hose lay requirement, and if a fire hose can't get within, well, you got to have a 150-foot fire hose go all the way around the structure. If not, you have to put in a fire sprinkler system. The applicant says they put in a fire sprinkler system, and I'm sure that was part of the plan review of that home. And if your other neighbor, I suspect they could get proper water pressure, and it may be expensive to do, but no doubt they could. It's not impossible, but
I
expensive.
was also told, I'm sorry, my apologies. I was also told by a fireman the only access they would have to a fire hydrant was down my driveway, that they would have to come down my driveway in order to get to that property, because the access wasn't sufficient.
It looked like there was a fire hydrant in front of your home.
There is one
Close.
I don't know exactly where. I apologize. I don't have that information.
That's okay. I think one of our aerial views actually showed what to me looked like a fire hydrant. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, up pretty close to your lot, actually. Mr. Chairman, I don't have any concerns with the fire issues they've expressed. I suspect that if the home required a fire sprinkler system, that this carport itself will also require a fire sprinkler system. But that'll be part of the plan review process.
I think when I think when the permits are issued, that's a different issue for a different, it's for planning and zoning as far as a sprinkler suppression system in the garage. I just one question: the fire department doesn't have any problem with the egress and ingress, that because Mr. Smith, I believe, or I don't remember which
Smith.
one, stated that it was narrow, that road, and it had debris on it, and the fire department apparently didn't see any issue with it if they.
They finalized the house.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So,
So it met all the fire department's criteria. Otherwise, they wouldn't have signed off on the house.
It is, for Mr. Smith, is there someone he can talk to in the fire department to address his concerns?
He's welcome to go up to the counter, and we have people in-house that can answer his questions.
Right down the hallway?
Yes.
Thank you.
any other individuals that wish to speak or anything else to be said? I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve this application as presented to us.
Second.
Second. I have a first by Larry Mead and a second by Jerry. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Second.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.